Hello guys, let's talk about Docker Compose, and if you haven't watched the previous video, I recommend you to watch it first because I talked about the most important Docker objects and the most common CLI commands. And now in this one, we'll see how to manage multiple containers using Docker Compose. And we're gonna create a Docker Compose file for our Node.js project. So let's start, okay? And the problem of using Docker CLI commands for everything is that in a real scenario, we will have multiple containers. For example, a database container, a web server container, and so on. And if you want to start all of them, we will have to run multiple Docker CLI commands, and it can be a little bit annoying and not so practical. Okay, and Docker provides Docker Compose, which is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. So the first step is to check if you have Docker Compose on your machine. And we can do that by running a command docker compose version, okay? Docker compose version. If you have a Docker desktop, you have got a full Docker installation, including Compose, but in case you don't have it, I will leave the link in the description with the official documentation for installing Docker Compose. Okay, and as you can see, I'm using the version 2 of Docker Compose. And this is the latest version. This is the latest major version of Docker Compose we have now. But it's still very common to see the version 1. They're pretty much the same in terms of syntax and comments. The most notable difference is that in the version 1, we had to specify the version of the Docker Compose when we were creating the YAML file. You're gonna see that. And also in the version 1, we had a specific command line interface. We'll probably see in some tutorials, for example, the commands start with docker -compose and then up or down or any other command, okay? However, in the version 2, we can use compose as part of the Docker command line interface. So now we can use docker space and then compose up or down and so on. So basically right now compose is part of the Docker command line interface, and you can replace the hyphen with a space, okay? And to use Docker Compose, we need to create a Docker Compose YAML file. And this file will contain all the configurations for our containers. So basically all that commands that we have seen in the previous video, we can put them inside the Docker Compose file, and then we can run a single command to start, stop, and manage all these containers. I will leave a link in the description with the official documentation for Docker Compose file with all the specifications and all the commands we can use. And now let's create our Docker Compose for our Node.js application. And the default name for Docker Compose file is compose.yaml, okay? And or we can also use docker -compose.yaml. Okay, this last one is for backward compatibility with the version 1, but the preferred name is compose.yaml, okay? And we can also use, instead of .yaml, we can use just .yml, okay? But I prefer to use this one .yaml, okay? And also this is the extension that is recommended by the official documentation, but just for you to know, we can use both of them, okay? So let's create our Docker Compose file here. And now we can start by defining our service. So let me open my Compose file. So here we can basically start with services, okay? And under services, we can define the configuration for each container or each service. So let's start with MongoDB, okay? And this is a custom name. We can define anything you want here, okay? But I will just use MongoDB, all right? And let me start with the container name here. which can be, we can use catalog, MongoDB, and then we need to define the image. We can also use a Docker file here, but in my case, I'll use the official image of Mongo and the version 6, which is the latest one. And you can also define the policy applied to the container termination. In our case, I'm gonna use the restart always to always restart the container in case of any error. Okay, and remember that indentation here, it's important because we are using a YAML file, so we need to be careful with that. Okay, and now we can define the volumes here. And the volume is also very important because we need to persist the documents of our collection. So if we stop the container, we don't lose this data. Okay, and again, if you want to know more about volumes, we need to watch the previous video where I talked about that. And for now, let me create a volume in this file here in my computer, data/db, and here is the folder inside the container. In our case, for MongoDB is also data/db. Okay, and we need to define the port mapping. Okay, the default port of the MongoDB is 27017, and we're going to map it to the port in the same port in our machine. Okay, so let me define the ports here to use 27017. All right, and that's it for MongoDB. Now we can define the container for our Node.js API. Okay, and again, we can start by defining the container name. If you don't define, the container name is also optional, okay, but if you don't define a container name, Docker will create a random name for us. So I like to define a useful name, a meaningful name. Okay, so we can use catalog API, and then the image, I'm gonna use node 18, all right? And we can define the working directory. In my case, I'm gonna use user source and app. Here we can also define this policy. Okay, I'll leave the comment here. So this is the policy applied to the container termination. Okay, and here we can define the environment variable. In our case, we need to define a variable for the Mongo path, and we are going to use this syntax here. Basically, this is the protocol for MongoDB. This is the name of the service, or the name of the name of the service. In our case, MongoDB. The port, we are going to use the default port, which is 27017. And here is the name of the database. In our case, we can use the catalog as well. So here we're defining the environment variables. And now we can define the volumes, okay? The first file that I'm going to define here, not a folder, is the package.json. Okay, so I'm gonna map the package .json to my working directory, which is user source app and then package.json. I'm gonna do the same for the package lock.json. Okay, and I'm gonna map the dist folder. This is the directory or the path where we are gonna build our TypeScript files. Okay, so we're gonna build into this dist directory, and I'm gonna map this to the container as well. Okay, and we can also define the ports here. In our case, we can use the 3000 or any port you prefer to use here. Okay, this is, we are basically define this, we're going to define this inside our server file here. Okay, so let me include more comments here. So this thing is the defines the volume to be mounted in the container. Okay, okay, and here exposes the containers ports to the host. Okay, and it's important for you to know that we define first the host port and then the container. Okay, and now we can define the comment. Sorry, command. Okay, and we're gonna basically run two commands here when we start this container. So we can use this syntax here to define multiple commands. So we're gonna basically install the dependencies using npm install, and then we're gonna use npm run dev. Okay, and it's important to mention that this command will overwrite the default command of the image. Okay, so overwrites the default command of the image. Okay, we also need to define a network between the API and the MongoDB. Okay, and this is very important because we are gonna access this MongoDB service here, so we need to define this network, and we can do that, basically define a link here. Okay, so it will create a network for us. Okay, let me include here using a network. Okay, and the last thing I want to define here is the depends on, and it will basically create a dependency with another service. So basically the MongoDB will start first, and then the API will start after the MongoDB. Okay, okay, and that's it about our Docker Compose file. So now we can start all the services with one single command, which is docker compose up. Okay, let's see. Probably we're gonna have an error for the API because we are not we're not building the TypeScript files, I guess. Oh no, we already have this folder here. Okay, so now I will change also the package.json. Okay, do you remember that we have created a start script to build our TypeScript files and also to start our application? We have this inside the package.json. And again, if you haven't watched the video where I talked about the Node.js development environment, I'll also leave the link here in the description. But now we can change this script to start the container using Docker Compose. Okay, so basically here, instead of start dev, you can use up, for example, and then we can build our project. And here, instead of run this command, we're going to use docker compose up. Okay, So we are building the TypeScript files, and we are running Docker Compose up, and then we are gonna start the MongoDB and the Node.js API, okay? And then after starting this container here, the service here, we are installing the dependencies inside the container, and then we're gonna run the npm run dev, which will start the node using the build files, okay? Using this main server.js. Okay, and now I can also define here another comment to stop the containers, basically running docker compose down, okay? And another thing that I want to do here is to use Nginx, and here we can basically define the node version of our application. In our case, we are using 18, okay? 18, and basically any minor version, okay? It's not important. All right, and another thing I want to do, as you can see, we have now the data folder here with all these files for which was created by the MongoDB, okay? So we need to include this data folder inside our gitignore, okay? So here, and now let me start again using this command here instead of docker compose up directly. So we can now run npm run and then up. Let me see what's happening here. Let me use two command lines here. So workspace, personal architecture. Okay, and let me run. Okay, so first let me stop again. So let me run this command. And now let me run up again. Okay, that's the issue. Basically, we're copying the server.js file now, but for some reason the folder structure is not the same in this file. As you can see here, we have just server.js, and here we're expecting to have this file, the server.js, inside the main folder. Okay, but I guess that it's because we just have this this file here inside the source folder. So for some reason, I don't know why it's not considering these folders here. So let me define another file here just for now. Test.ts, okay. And let me log something here. And let me run again. Okay, I need to run it outside of the container. So npm run down. All right. And docker compose, no, npm run up. Mm. Okay, now it will work. As you can see, I had to define a new file in another folder. Now it's using the same structure here. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so now as you can see, I just have the MongoDB running, okay, the MongoDB logs here, but I'm running both commands here. However, I am not executing nothing inside the server.ts file. So, but here you can see that it's working. So node.mo is running, and now we don't have that error anymore. All right. And now let me define like a basic express route just to make sure that it's working and to make sure that MongoDB is connecting and everything it's fine. Okay. So here we can basically remove this test file here, and let me start with the server.js. And here I need to first connect to the MongoDB. Okay, so I'm gonna create inside the infrastructure folder a new directory called db. Okay, and then we can use MongoDB, and then we can use like a helpers folders, and inside these helpers let me define db connection.js. And here you can start importing the collection type and also the Mongo collection, Mongo client type, okay, from MongoDB. And I'm gonna start by creating a class here, DB connection, and we're gonna have two properties. Okay, the first one is the path, so private URL, it will be optional, okay, and it will be string, and also the client, which will be the Mongo, which will be of the type Mongo client, okay, and also option, because when we start here, the first value will be undefined, and then when we connect it, we will define a path, and then we will have a client. Okay, so we can define the first function here, first method called connect, where we are gonna pass the URL, which will be a string, and it will return it won't have any return, so it will be a void. And here you can basically assign this property, and then we can start we can create our client. Okay, so MongoDB client, and then we need to pass the URL, and then we're going to use this client to connect. Okay, and also we can define a function here to disconnect from the MongoDB, where we can basically call the client and then use the close function. Okay, and also I'm gonna reset the client property. So that's it, and now we can export this class by default. Okay, yeah, later we're gonna create a function here to get the collection. Okay, but we're not gonna do that right now because we're not gonna use it. So let me remove this import here. And now inside the server.js, we can import this DB connection helper and then connect to the MongoDB. So here I'm going to import the DB connection, okay, from infrastructure, DB, MongoDB helpers, and then DB connection, okay. And remember that we are using this this feature of TypeScript to not including the relative path, okay. So here we can type DB and then we can use the connect function, and then we need to pass the path from MongoDB. And remember that we are creating this thing here as a environment variable, okay, here Mongo URL. So here we can use, for example, process dot env dot mongo URL, and then we can use, for example, then, and if we were able to connect to MongoDB, we can then start our Express, okay, API. And in case of any error, we can just log this error, okay. So here I have this error because basically the Mongo can be undefined as well. So we need to define like a fallback path. So for example, like this, and then we need to use this thing here, okay. But actually, instead of defining this variable here, I'm gonna create a file just specific for the environment variables, okay. And we are gonna create that inside the main as well. So here we can define a new directory called config, and then inside config we can have our env.ts, okay. And here we can export by default TypeScript JavaScript object. And here we can have the port, okay, of our application, which can be also from the environment variables, or 3000. In our case, we're going to use 3000 by default. And also the Mongo URL, which will be basically MongoDB 27017, and here it's catalog, okay. Okay, I need to use this syntax here, and now I just need to import this env here inside the server.js, okay. And now here we can use env.mongo URL, and now let me create another file here inside config for our Express, okay. So I'm gonna use app.js, and here we can also export by default an object, okay, function, okay. So we can export a function, and this function will return Express app, okay. I guess that I need to install Express, so and also we need to install the TypeScript types for Express, okay? All right, and now we should have the Express type here. Okay, let me import it manually. So import Express from Express. All right. So here we can define, we can start our Express app. Okay. And here we can set up the middlewares, the routes and everything. And then we need to return this app. Okay. Okay, I need to define as a TypeScript, not a JavaScript. And instead of defining the routes directly here in this file, I'm gonna use another config file here for the routes, okay? So let me create the routes.ts, and here we can export by default another function as well, where we're gonna receive the Express app, okay? And we don't need to return anything here because we're basically change this Express app, okay? Let me import the Express type and also the router type from Express. Perfect. So here we can define our router, okay? And then we can use, we can define, let's say, a health check route, okay? Just to make sure that our app is running and it's working fine. So here we can use app dot get, okay, and then we can use, let's say, slash health. So here we just need to return like the 200 status code, okay, and I'm gonna return a JSON with the message okay. So now we need to basically return this router. No, I'm sorry. We need to define app.use and then router. Okay, now let me close this file here and go back to our app.js. And here we can import, let's call it setup routes, okay, from main config and then routes. So here now we just need to call the setup routes and pass the Express app. All right. And here now in our server.js, we can call the app. So let me use setup app. Okay. And here we can define our app. So now we can do like app.listen, perfect, and then pass the port of our application, which is 3000, and then we just need to we can just log this information that the server is running. Let me change this. server running on party, and then the port. Okay, so that's it, I guess. So let me run again the application, and we should see this message here: server running on port 3000. Okay, okay, perfect. Now we have the Express app running on port 3000 inside the container. Okay, and the last thing I want to check is the in-memory implementation of the MongoDB that we are using for testing. Okay, remember that we have this package here called shelf just MongoDB, where we are basically running just with in-memory implementation of MongoDB for our tests. So now let's create a very simple test just to make sure that we can also use this inside our test files. Okay, so the first thing I want to change is the just MongoDB config. Remember that here we define the version of the binary of the MongoDB, and in our case we are using the version 6. Okay, let me check what is the latest version of MongoDB. Okay, so we can use the version 6 .0.2, and if you have like a new version when you are watching this video, you can use that as well. But for now, I'm going to use this one, so .2. Okay, and let me create test file here. So here we can actually create a test for the DB connection file. Okay, so I'm going to use the same structure here, the same folder structure, which is db / mongodb / helpers, and then db connection .spec.ts. okay, this is a test file. Let me create again as a file, not as a folder. So db connection .spec.ts. all right, and here we can start by importing our db connection. Okay, and also the env, the environment variables. Okay, and let me create a new describe here with the name of the class, which is the db connection. And before executing our tests, we need to connect to the MongoDB. Okay, so basically here we are going to use the same method that we are using in the server.js. However, here the path will be different. So inside this file, I'm not starting the Docker Compose, so I'm not creating this environment variable here. So basically it will use this fallback path here, and I guess that I need to change this to localhost. But let me run like this right now, and let me see if you throw an error. Probably it will. Okay, and then we are going to change this to localhost, and it should work. Okay, because the in-memory implementation with Jest, we basically create a MongoDB inside the local host, okay? And this protocol will be the same, and also the port will be the same. And this is just the name of the database, okay? So let me reverse this. And after running our tests, we need to disconnect as well, okay? And let me use, I like to use it. So I like to use this convention here, like it should reconnect, let's say. No. It should connect to MongoDB, okay? So basically, we need to expect the DB connection dot client to be true. Okay, this client is private. Okay. So let me create another method here just to check if it's connected, okay? So you can use return this dot client, and we can basically check if the client exists, okay? I guess that we don't have this is connected. Let me see. Yeah, we don't. Okay, so actually, instead of using this function, we can create a method to get the collection, and then we can check if we were able to get this collection, okay? I guess that this is a more reliable way to do this, okay? So here we can use, okay, now we can use the collection type here. So we're gonna return a promise with the collection, okay? And here will be the name of the collection, which will be string. So here we can define first the database, okay? And then we need to call the client.db. And if you don't have the database, you can throw an error like MongoDB client is not connected. And we can return, in case we have the database, we can return database.collection and then the name. Okay, what's the error here? Okay, here is complaining because I need to check like this if it's null, okay, and then I need to throw an error. But I will actually disable this TypeScript this length rule, because I want to check if it's not defined at all. If it's null, if it's undefined, if it's anything that is falsy, I won't throw this error, okay? So I'm gonna disable this rule here. I think it's not important. So we can do that basically in the tsconfig, no, yes, lint.json, and here we have these rules. So basically we can set this rule to off, okay? All right. And here I will also include another validation here to check if you don't have the client, okay, just in case that the MongoDB is down for some reason. I want to reconnect again, okay? So we need to check if we don't have the client, and we have the MongoDB path. Okay, if that's true, then I want to connect again. Okay, so that's it. And now let me create this test here. Basically, I'm gonna change that to check if we are able to reconnect again. Okay, so should reconnect if MongoDB is down. Perfect. So here we can define our collection. Okay, so let's say a collection, and then we need to use this method that we just created. I'm going to use, for example, catalogs here, and then we expect the collection to be truthy. Okay, and let me disconnect again, and now let me set this variable again. And if we disconnect and we call the get collection, we should reconnect again to the MongoDB. Okay, and then the expect here should be truthy again. Okay, so that's it. Let me try to run the test scripts. I guess that for now I can stop this. Okay, let me run the test script. Okay, so it's downloading the Mongo 6 because we don't have it right now, and should throw an error because no, it's passing. Interesting. Let me. Okay. I guess that the MongoDB implementation actually uses this this environment variable as well. Let me check. Yeah, so I just checked it in the official documentation, and actually the library sets the Mongo URL for us for convenience. Okay, so if we change this, for example, let me see, like this. Okay, it should throw an error because it will not be able to find the MongoDB path. Yeah, exactly. So it's a timeout error. And also, let me remove this line here to make sure that the test will fail. Okay, so let me comment this thing and run again, and the test should fail. Perfect. And now let me run again, and the test should pass. Okay, perfect. So now we have everything we need. We have the in-memory implementation of MongoDB working to run our tests, and we also have our Docker Compose file to manage our containers for the MongoDB and for the Node.js API. Okay, so that's it for this video. I will leave the link of all this code in the description. Okay, and if this series is helping you, please consider to subscribing to my channel. And also, if you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and I'll try to answer as soon as possible. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye.